Hello.
Hello, welcome back to what episode is this?
5.
It's 5. What are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about the fermentation process and what comes after
Distillation.
I
was really hoping, as this was a bit sciencey, that this was going to be like a U episode. But I've made a ton of notes that I'm going to try and not read from.
I was debating whether I should come with a blouse, like chemists or from what they wear in labs.
Oh, the white coat.
And protection goggles and whatnot.
So it kind of leads on from our first episode, which was the single malt.
Yes.
And the malt, the barley, washing that. So from what I remember from my notes, as soon as you get the barley and you add the water to it, that's what's called the mash.
The mashing, yeah.
The mash.
Yeah.
Okay. When that starts to release sugars.
Well, you have to go back a little bit more to what we said. You add the water to the malted barley, right? You started to make it germinate.
Yeah.
And then you interrupted that process.
That's right.
It's not random. You interrupted, I think, at a time where it's more favorable to and eventually produce those sugars.
That's
with
right.
the interaction with water. Yeah.
And once the sugars are created, it's called wort. Now, here comes the interesting part. Then you add yeast. There's such a thing as distiller's yeast, and it can come as a cream, a semi-pressed kind of mix, or dried. And the thing with the cream is that this liquid yeast, it dies pretty quickly, so you've kind of got to use it. The dried one lasts for years, but liquid yeast is easier to mix.
Yes.
And when they add this liquid yeast, they've actually got to heat it. And do you know what the peak temperature for heating yeast to is? Don't look at my notes.
No, I'm going to say, because I'm going back to my beer brewing days.
Oh.
But it's different yeast strains, so I don't know about the distiller's yeast. But if you wanted to make an ale, I think you wanted to. Well, you wanted I'm mixing things. That was the temperature of the mash. Because for the mashing to happen, you also want a certain temperature. Yeah. Now, for the yeast, for beer, you use yeast that work pretty much in ambient temperature, or a bit lower if you want to make a lager.
Okay.
I'm gonna say for distiller's yeast, 15 degrees Celsius.
34.
34. Okay, well, you did say that you have to heat it up.
And if it goes above 35, you kill the yeast.
But if it goes, what if you go with yeast at 31,
don't
32?
Ask me complicated 34 is called the peak temperature. Okay. And the way it's controlled is that the water from the mashings is cooled beforehand in a heat exchanger. So there's already a lot happening going through this sciencey process. And after that, after the yeast is activated, you get what's called a wash, which is the beer-like liquid.
Well, after the yeast is activated and the fermentation has happened.
Yes, that's right.
At the end of the fermentation,
the yeast is activated, it breaks down all the sugars
into alcohol and CO2.
Yeah, exactly. And you get this thing called a wash.
Yes.
Do you know some distilleries sell that off as a drink called a Joe?
A Joe?
A Joe.
Because we were talking about this at the beginning episode. Why don't they make beer? Because this is essentially...
It's called a Joe, like a name, Joe.
Yeah, okay. But is it...
I haven't actually looked for it yet, but I wonder if you can buy it online.
I was thinking, because you were asking, why don't more whiskey distilleries, sell some of it as beer? But I was thinking afterwards, probably I have no idea, maybe distilleries who listen to us, if there's any, can help enlighten me. But maybe it's because it's not worth it. I mean, they've invested in equipment and in yeast and in grains and everything to make whiskey. And if you want to make beer, first of all, you're not going to sell beer at the same price point as whiskey. It's just not worth it.
But some distilleries do gin as well and vodka, so because they have the distillation.
True. But another thing I researched after our first episode is what's the difference in we call it the wash or that you get when you make beer or if you want to make whiskey. So first of all, the yeast strains are different. Yeah. But also for beer, before you put the yeast into your wash, you boil it because you want to sanitize it, and you don't do that for whiskey. You don't want to boil it.
Definitely, if it goes above 35, you kill it, apparently. But yeah, so this mix now, this wash with liquid yeast, all the sugars, that gets pumped into a big vat, and that's where you hear the term the wash back.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So you create this wash and then you pump it into a vat, and that's wash back. Now, if you mix the yeast early on, it helps to kill off all the nasty infectious bacteria and microorganisms that are in it as well. And really, the fermentation starts as soon as the yeast is entered. I mean, it really starts working, and you get this 48 to 60 hours kind of time frame where the sugars are really broken down, and you get this sour beer kind of ale out of it, which is, in terms of alcohol, ABV, 7 to 8%. So not bad.
I'd like to try it.
Yeah.
What worries me that it hasn't been sanitized. Beer normally is sanitized before, boiled for sanitation purposes. In this case, it hasn't. So what are you drinking? A whole bunch of bacteria.
I guess it's like milk from the cow. They also like pasteurize it and stuff. But these washbacks, they used to be made of wood. And I got a list. It used to be European larch or American Oregon pine or Douglas fir, because it had a tight grain, no knots, and it came in like long panels, and it was perfect. Oops, not my glass. But now stainless steel.
Now stainless steel, okay.
Because easier to clean, easier to maintain, more energy efficient. But some people say, you don't get the pores, and apparently what I mentioned about the killing off the nasty microbes, apparently some of them are good. Some of them taste nice. And they said, okay, if you're using stainless steel washbacks, you can just not clean them as much. And that's the solution.
Like your gas grill.
Yeah, exactly. You want to keep some flavor in there.
Yeah. And so what is it called? This vat again? What do you call it?
The washback.
Washback. Okay. And this is not the one that you're going to use for your first distillation, is it?
No, I think we're still in fermentation now.
So 60 hours later is done, no?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of fermentation, the flavors that come through, firstly, they depend on, as you mentioned, the type of the yeast, the time that you fermented, the temperature, and gravity. Do you know this?
No.
Okay. So, the ratio between the malt and the water. If you use...
that's gravity. Yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Low gravity is going to be a lot of water to not much grain. High gravity is going to be a lot of grain to not much water. And typically, if you use half the grain, it's going to take like twice as long to ferment. But you're going to get this more concentrated because there's less liquid. There's less liquid to heat up. It's more energy efficient again. But you'll have less alcohol yield. And it'll be quite strong because there won't be enough yeast to break down all the sugars. But I've got a chart here. I can't show you the chart. So 48 hours. If you ferment it 48 to 50, it's going to get that cereal kind of flavor still. If you hit a sweet spot of like 60 hours, this allows the yeast to rest and to release more flavor again. And you're going to get new flavors developing and more of a complex.
Do you know the fluctuation?
I'm just like...
No, I just know. I think the yeast operates, is some that operate at the surface, or the kinds of yeast that will drop at the bottom of the recipient that they're poured in. I don't know the distiller's yeast, where it's active.
No idea. But typically, the longer you let this yeast to rest, it's going to release more flavors. So yeah, some go as long as 120.
And flavors, I think, so this is where, I don't know if you took you there, maybe we shouldn't go there, but I'm going to open the door anyway, towards the production of esters.
Ester is like a person?
E-S-T-E-R?
No.
No, okay. This is a byproduct of the fermentation by the yeast of all these sugars and transformation into alcohol and CO2, but also esters, which you can also control, I think, through temperature. I'm not sure, other means. There's different kinds of esters, and typically they will give you a different flavor profile. Like a well-known ester, at least in beer, is one that gives you a banana flavor. Yeah. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you do not want
banana beer.
Well, banana is probably coming from unless they added banana juice in their beer, it's probably coming from esters.
And so when this is fermenting, you mentioned CO2, carbon dioxide, and that's because that's what creates the foam. If you're cooking something on a hob, it's cooking boiling milk, you get this foam. The way you control the temperature, you have on the actual washbacks, you have these two windows, so the distiller can look in, and you want it to keep the foam from carrying over. and you lower the temperature through like the remote steam heat source, or rise it, and you want to keep it there. But the foam is cool because it's literally yeast cells releasing carbon dioxide like a jet propulsion and then whizzing around. I think that's what creates the foam. It's so cool. Well, I think
it's something kids would like.
Yes. Yes,
we get your kids into whiskey.
Yes, we do. And yeah, so we've talked about fermentation. Yeah, I think
now it's ready. Now it's ready for
as much as I can talk about fermentation.
Now it's ready for distillation, which I really want to get to.
Okay, distillation.
Distillation. So, well, help me there because you're in this washback.
Yes.
That. So you need to transfer the liquid from there into another recipient, which is
it's the wash still.
The wash still.
Yeah.
This one is typically made of copper, and is that the one that's a pot still, right? You have different. You have colored ones, and you have
that's right.
For single malt whiskey, we're going to talk about pot stills.
Yeah, and we're talking about a lot higher temperature than what we were for fermentation. Fermentation, heating the yeast to 34 degrees. With distillation, we're heating it a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much.
37 degrees Celsius.
Not quite the boiling temperature of water, actually.
No, because alcohol has a lower boiling.
You want to play on that, right? The different boiling points for different...
and what happens is actually the spirit is vaporized, obviously before the water, and that's how you take out the spirit.
And so, Ben, let's give it the big picture first. So you have distillation, you'll have usually more than one distillation. 2 is most common, sometimes 3. So you have the wash still, where you do the first distillation, you apply a heat source, and you evaporate your...
Yeah, and this is where you play on the foam. So you got the heat source. Some of them use plates underneath the still. So some distilleries like Glenfiddich, Carlin, Springbank still use that method. Most use a remote steam source. And you want to keep it between those two windows.
Yeah, you want to be able to control it.
Exactly.
Easily.
Yeah. And we mentioned this in the peated episode. They used to use peat as a fuel source. But now, unfortunately, not so much. Probably health and safety.
And so you have that wash still, and you have a second one, the spirit still, for the second distillation.
Yeah, so
you're going to capture the contents of the condensation.
So typically, the content, what we didn't mention, was different components or compounds evaporate or boil at different temperatures. So the ones with the lower boiling point will obviously disappear first. That's called the head. The ones that are kind of the medium boiling point, that's the heart, which is what we want to capture, which is what we're going to mature. And the higher ones are the tails. That's right. And if you heat it too much, you can get some hot spots in there, which is where you get that roasted flavor sometimes.
Sometimes you do want that. You want to...
Depends on the flavor profile of the distiller ones,
And do you know why those stills are made of copper? Almost,
no.
Or maybe completely, totally, exclusively of copper. It is because copper reacts with sulfur compounds. Because you mentioned all those compounds. There's one you do not want. It's the sulfur compound. Because if you let it in, I think that's the one that gives you the rotten eggs / fart kind of flavors, which I don't think you want ultimately in your whiskeys. Copper actually is going to interact with those compounds, and it's going to remove those off flavors. I think it's because they're gonna stick to the edges of the...
Some of them will stick, and then some of them, which boil off first, kind of go up the still, up the neck, and then get captured in compound states.
Yes, but the fact that you use copper and not another metal, because with copper it's gonna produce something else, a harmless copper sulfate. That's the thing. I don't know the formula.
That first distillation is actually quite quick when you compare it to the fermentation. It's like 60 hours. Now we're talking like 4 to 6 hours.
Okay.
So it's really, really short, and playing with the heat source to keep it kind of between the windows to kind of massage the head compounds that you want to capture. It's really quick. It's really delicate, I would say. But once once that first distillation is finished, that's when you get your low wines.
Low wines, that's what they call them.
Spirit still.
They're about, if I remember correctly, they're about 20 to 30%
Exactly.
ABV, right?
That's right, yeah. So we're still not there yet.
No, it's actually more of a
And
high wine.
we've done a lot of science so far, and we're still not anywhere near whiskey yet.
Oh, come on, we're getting closer.
At second distillation, so typically with Scotch, double distillation is quite common. It's the most common with Scotch.
Yeah. But to get to the second, so you got a condensation. You got to condensate or condense? Condensate. Condense is more condense it. I don't know. So you gotta go through the process of condensation, right, of your vapors, so
that's right. It goes into the condenser.
They become liquid again, and this liquid you gather into the second still, which is called the spirit still.
Yeah, and you do that by basically there's constant running cold water just to what's it called? Liquefy the vapor. I've forgotten these science terms.
It's the condensation.
And then we get to the point where we talk about making the cut.
Tell me more about it.
Well, it's really about, we go back to the head, the heart, and the tails. So if you capture more of the head compounds, you're typically going to get a lighter whiskey. If you capture more of the tail, that's it, the tail compounds, you're going to get a heavier whiskey that is more, how can I say, more typical with peated whiskies. And how you capture those with the temperature, the timings, and the compound filters is really where you get this distiller's art, is what they call it.
So there's tasting involved, and there's
you can do it, yeah. I don't know how safe it is.
I think one of them is super toxic. I think it's the heads.
Yeah, but then you're going to get finally a spirit that is around 70%. We're finally there.
I'm pretty sure they do taste the heart, but how do they know this is the heart, this is the tails, this is...
It's to do with the compounds. So as they evaporate...
So they measure...
So the compounds with the lower boiling point, which we call the head, these get released first. So these get captured off into compound states.
But when do you know that first becomes middle? How do you know you have reached that boundary?
Because they have, they used to have actual compound safes, so like actual physical things, so you could see the liquid in there.
Okay. Yeah.
But now they have like digital metric and all kinds of computer wizardry involved as well.
Nice. And so usually after this second distillation, you've calibrated, the new make that you want.
You've got your new make.
Tasted, made sure that it's the quality that you want, that it has the flavor profile you wanted, and then you're done, right? This is for another episode, or an episode where we talk about cask.
So that's where you get the term new make. So it's literally newly made, but no maturation has happened yet. You haven't put it into any casks. You haven't played around with finishing it. You've just got your approximately 70%. You can't even call it cask strength because it hasn't been in the cask yet.
New strength.
Yeah. My gosh, that was sciencey.
Well, I have one more question for you.
Oh my God. I ran.
Because I've read, we've already said that we've never been, at least I have never visited a distillery. Well, I have visited a distillery, but not a whiskey distillery.
I've been to a distillery, small one.
To remember, because sometimes you read up about those distilleries and they say this one is known because it has super high stills in height. They're very, very tall. Or this one is unique because they're super short. What influence does the height of the still make on the final product?
I can guess it's something to do with as the compounds vaporize, they alter do they cool as they're going up the long neck before they turn the corner?
Yeah, I think that's it. And I didn't know before this episode. That's why I love our episode so much, because I do learn a bunch of things before I come here. And so in a taller still, the vapors will have a longer vertical path to travel.
Yeah.
And so they'll cool more. And so more heavy compounds will drop back into where they came from. And that's called a high reflux. This process of some of it coming back is the reflux. So if you have a high reflux, you'll have only the lighter, the more delicate molecules that will make it through the neck and until the end of the distillation process. And so yes, to have a lighter whiskey in the end. And so typically a distillery that wants to produce a peated whiskey and wants to emphasize that peatiness will tend to use shorter stills because they want the opposite effect. They want to carry the heavy peated the phenols and all these things to be carried on.
That's interesting. I think you mentioned the peated. We did an episode on peated whiskies, and we talked about in the tasting you brought the Optimal, which is like peated to 160 something.
Yeah, this one. Sometimes they go over 200.
But you don't get that overpowering ashtray flavor because it's fermented longer, which then brings forth all the more and more flavors in the yeast that actually helps carry that phenol level. Right. Science over. We have a new segment. What is the new segment? We're going to do every week something interesting that comes into mind.
So my new segment is, we found out, because we were talking about the Islay distilleries or the regions, when we did the episode on the region, I think it was, and we talked about the different regions, Islay being a region of its own, and we were being smartasses, pretending that we could name all the distilleries on the island, and we came one short.
That's right. What was it?
And the one that we missed is one that actually closed in 1983. It was super popular in my dad's time, very well known for producing quality whiskey, called Port Ellen. And they have reopened already, I found out. So this is probably a year old news, but for me it's news, and I'm excited about it. They don't yet have whiskey because it hasn't been maturing for 3 years, about 3 years out from producing their first whiskey. But they have reopened already, and they are producing whiskey as we speak.
So they're not the 10th; they're like the whatever.
Yeah, well, they lost their place, so they are the 10th. They closed for so many years, and they're back.
I have heard of it, but yeah.
Yeah, I never tried it. That's
not. We have to try it.
I don't know how close it will be to the original, now that they reopened. New people probably see Diageo. Who's owning the distillery. I don't know if they owned it before. So it could be completely different. Maybe they're reusing same equipment. I don't know if they have reinvested into different equipment. I have no idea. Just know that.
We could, at some point, start a new segment where we do a spotlight on a distillery.
Yeah.
And give a little history and whatever about a distillery.
But then we'll have issues with distilleries that we haven't mentioned, and they'll say, hey, why not us?
Oh, yeah, all the distilleries that watch us. Interesting stuff. So now, onto the fun segment. Tasting. I have something for you. It's new.
Have I tried it before?
I haven't tried it before. So, you may know that in one of our previous tastings, I'm a big fan of Meclato, which is from the Glenallachie distillery, and their goal and target to make peated perfection. And the one I had before was called the sherry one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went back to our favorite little shop, Borja, and I wanted to buy another sherry one. And he's like, but have you tried this other one?
Oh, did he sell it?
So this is Meclato, the Chinkapin one.
The what?
Yeah, the Chinkapin. So again, 5 years old, no color added, non-chill filtered, bottled at 48%.
Peated perfection, it says.
Again, peated perfection. And he said to me, this is a little bit more spicy. And I was like, okay. I loved the sherry one. It was like my go-to one. He may have done me a kipper on this one, but we're going to try it first live on the podcast.
Oh my God, that's the first time we've ever done that.
When he said spices, I was like, wow, like curry, bacon spices? What's it going to be?
Can we tell?
Okay.
Your color is beautiful.
The color is like a kind of honey color.
Orange, yeah.
Okay. So, healthy dose. So how is it on the nose?
Peaty.
Would you say perfectly peaty?
Perfectly peaty.
Velvety, smooth on the nose.
I mean, definitely.
I feel
reminiscent of the Octomore we had.
It feels like, is it caramel? Oh, vanilla? Vanilla, maybe?
Yeah, maybe vanilla.
Okay.
Let's we didn't bring any.
Wow.
I get what he means by spicy. On the tip of your tongue. There's something.
How do you describe that?
Yep. I can't put a name on it, but
Christmassy.
like cloves.
I don't know, I'm getting like Christmassy, like log fire,
Yeah, I'm getting some wood.
snowy scene. A reindeer tossed by the wind. Really, it's like baking spices. Would you say that like that? Yeah, cinnamon, vanilla, that kind of stuff you'd get into like a
Yeah,
cake.
not pepper,
No,
more cinnamon.
not
Yeah,
hot.
more cinnamon, woody spice.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's very different.
I don't know if I like it as much as the sherry one because that is super smooth. But this,
I like it because it's unique and it's not. I haven't had a peated whiskey like this one before.
but you know what? We talked a lot about the spices. We
Yeah.
haven't mentioned any peatedness or smoke yet.
Well, because that's what
But
we're
it's
looking
there,
for.
right?
Yeah, I mean, on the nose, definitely.
You mentioned wood. It is there, that earthy
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. Because it's Glenallachie, right? Which is
Yeah,
Speyside.
Billy Walker. Yeah, I mean Billy Walker is genius. This Meclato brand is fantastic. I think festive is a good way to describe
festive. That's a good adjective.
it. So that's going to lead us into our next episode. What is our next episode?
The pipette.
Another sciencey one, maybe.
Well, we'll see what we can say about the pipette.
And specifically the role of water in whiskey.
Which I was going to say, like we didn't bring so far in any of our episodes so far any water at all to dilute our whiskey with a little bit.
To know why, you'll have to watch the next episode. So if you have questions, complaints, comments, issues, feel free to jot them down on whatever platform you're watching this on. Try to be kind.
And then hit all the buttons, the bells, the likes, the subscription buttons,
the
whatever they look
hearts,
like.
Yeah, all of that. And this is really good.
This is really good. We need to finish it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Catch you next
Bye-bye.
time. But this is really nice.